Moroso engine block filler. Here we are cleaning the block, getting ready to do some masking, and using a little bit of masking tape, or in this case duct tape, we can seal the top of the cylinders up so that we're able to pour the block filler in without pouring it into the wrong spot. Trying to conserve on tape, we can just take some smaller pieces off and cover each of the cylinders up entirely, with leaving the stud bolts in the deck and everything. And you just finish this process and you get all the cylinders covered up, and then we're able to finish the masking by covering the camshaft area with a large piece of plastic. This is what it looks like when you're finished. Now we're adding a little bit more masking tape, and with this we're going to be able to attach a piece of plastic to cover the rest of the engine. This is one of those good uses for duct tape. Then we just take some plastic and fold it over and literally bring it up underneath that freshly laid tape and stick it on, and boom, now we've masked off the rest of the engine pretty good. At least it's good for liquid cement anyway. Well, what we use is we use a little vinegar in the water area to help help clean the metal up, so that we're cleaning it so that the cement will have something to bite onto. This cleans out some of the rust and stuff. We let that vinegar sit in there for about an hour or so, and then we drain it out, and the process basically is remove it like I'm about to here. Remove that vinegar that was in there, and of course you'll see bits and pieces of rust that'll come out and whatever else was floating around in there. And after we get that vinegar drained out, then the next thing we want to do is we want to neutralize that. So what I did is I used another container and I mixed up some water and with a little bit of baking soda. So that's what I'm pouring in there right now, is just water and baking soda, and that actually kind of bubbles and fizzes quite a bit when it pours in, and that it helps finish cleaning it up, as well as it neutralizes the activity of the acid. So once you pour that in there, virtually you just slosh it around a little bit, and you're ready to take it back out again. We're trying to pay attention to how far up in the actual water area the neutralizer was. Now watch as it comes out here, you'll see it starts going into the bucket there, and actually it's fizzing pretty good in there. Oops. Once this neutralization process is done, then we go in and kind of dry it out a little bit, push that stuff out of there. I just use an air hose to kind of dry out that the neutralizer a little bit. Then to make sure that I get all the water out of it, I use a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. Now this is 90% isopropyl alcohol. And what I do is I pour in, actually in this case, a couple quarts of that isopropyl alcohol. And what we do is we slosh that around, and what that does, it pulls all the moisture, the water that's in the block, it pulls it out into, actually suspends it into the alcohol itself. And then when we drain this alcohol out, that pulls the moisture out of it. And what that does is it allows the block to dry quickly internally. And a little bit of compressed air to help finish blowing that alcohol out of there. And virtually within minutes, the engine is then dry enough internally to accept the block filler. I use a vacuum cleaner and help suck even more air through there, and that finishes the drying process. Any shop vac will work. Just make sure that you have most of the alcohol out of there so that you're not sucking alcohol up. Alcohol is combustible, and vacuum cleaners typically aren't a thing to be sucking combustible material up with. And here we are going to insert a rubber hose. This rubber hose is nothing more than a piece of vacuum line. And I use a little grabber tool, go in and I put this rubber hose in through the water drain port. And I pull it up through, just like I'm doing here through the deck surface. And then what I do is I put a little tape around the bottom of the hose, right by where it goes into the hole. And what that does, it seals on those threads. And what the idea here is that we'll put a little Vaseline on it here too. But what the idea is that goes in and you pull it in place. And what happens is that when the cement hardens, you can pull this rubber hose out, and you can still use the factory drain port in order to drain the water out of the engine. This is handy if you do a lot of dyno testing or just pull the engine in and out of your race car. You want to be able to get that water out of there. So that silicone or that Vaseline helps it seal. We just kind of push it in like that. That works pretty good. And what I do is I pull that hose kind of taut, up through the top of the deck, and I usually just kind of connect it onto each to the other piece using a vice grips, which you'll see here. And again, that's just something that we just leave in there until the block filler is hardened, and then that provides us with a means to be able to drain the engine through the standard water drain port. Now you can drill the block and add your own drain port up higher, up by where the fill level is. But the problem with that, of course, is you can't get at it very well with the headers in place. Now we're doing a little leveling. We want to make sure the block is totally level, both side to side and front to back. It's extremely important because when the cement goes in there, you want to make sure that it flows to a level position and it's equal around all the cylinders. Rubber gloves if you got them. In this case, I had some medical grade ones. That block filler is, just like cement, and of course it gets on your skin and it wants to kind of hang on. What we're going to do is we're going to measure off, some water. Now, these Moroso containers, they recommend using anything from 2 cups to 3 cups of water mixed with each one of these containers. Now, you want to start out with the least amount of water possible, so I just start out with 2 cups of water. I added 2 cups of water and I mixed the block filler up, and basically we check to see if that's pourable enough, and oftentimes I end up adding a little bit more. Usually 2.5 cups is what we use. Now this shaking process is really hard to do. Imagine that's about 25-30 pounds. You gotta sit there and shake that about 2 minutes. It's recommended to shake it for about 2 minutes, and really you're better off making sure that you get all the chunks or the lumps out of it. So it's a long process. I just kind of cut it short here for the movie, but we definitely shake that for about 2 minutes total time. Check the consistency, see if it's something that you're ready to use, and there it is, that's ready to go. We go back to the block, we insert our funnel. I just use a long 1/2-inch opening funnel, and I also use this long screwdriver to help move the cement around, or the block filler. One last shake. You want to make sure this stuff is fully animated and ready to go. And what we're going to do is we're going to start filling the block from the back of the block, working our way forward, filling through the holes that are available in the deck surface. Now it's kind of important you don't put too much in any one particular spot, because if it builds up too high inside, it can actually form like a block inside the engine and stop the water from flowing through the jacket. So by pouring, just a little bit in each area and moving along like you see me doing here, you're able to move it towards the front of the block. The cement just kind of moves towards the front of the block, and it kind of just oozes through there. As you can see, it's kind of a liquid, but it's still fairly hard, so you got to kind of wiggle the funnel a little bit to help get that material to drop through. As you can see, it's a little bit of work to get it to drop through these holes. And you always want to pay attention to how much is in there. And we just kind of keep working our way from top to bottom. Now remember, on a big block, the cylinders are Siamesed anyway, so you've really got 2 chambers you're dealing with. One towards the the channel oils, the other one is towards the outside of the block. So you kind of just work your way down both sides and keep adding more filler as you're going along. And keep working it in. Now to do a partial fill, one container of this is pretty good for about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of fill. 2 containers will take you right up to the bottom of the where the water pump goes on, and that's considered like pretty much a full fill, with still being able to cool it to some degree. Now what my plan was this time was to fill it to about 3/4 of an inch up or below the water neck, where the water pump bolts on. So as you can see, I'm working the cement around now with that screwdriver and adding a little bit more. That screwdriver, you got to kind of move the cement around from left to right or top to bottom as best you can to level it off, because it doesn't find home by itself very well. You have to kind of help it along. A coat hanger will work pretty good as well. Then you also want to get the air bubbles to come out, so we're using a dead blow hammer, which is basically just like a hard plastic hammer. We just kind of agitate the block the best you can, hitting it, which helps burp all the air bubbles up from there. And you do want to do that for about a couple of minutes. That's a fairly long process, try to get those bubbles up. Then, of course, when you think you're done, you always want to double check to make sure that that's all leveling real nicely in there. And you definitely want to make sure that you don't have any passageways blocked off. So it's a good idea to pay close attention to what you've done. So check to make sure that's all in there good. And now you can take a look in there. You can see where the cement level is. It's about 3/4 of an inch down. Below where the water pump goes on. Now the drying process is done. This is a couple of days later. Now we're going to go ahead and remove this rubber hose. And sometimes when you pull it out, it breaks, which oftentimes it does. You want to kind of, be as careful with it as you can, and just easily back and forth, pull on a little bit, and eventually you can pull it right out of there. Boom, you remove it, and that removes the whole hose. And now that area is open down to the factory drain point, and you're able to use that factory plug at that point. Want to clean the threads up as a final note on that one too. Here we are pulling the masking tape off, kind of just, or the duct tape. Now, we had done a lot of cleaning before we did this. It's a good idea to get as much dirt off the engine as you can. As a matter of fact, I had it totally clean before we pull that off, because you don't want any of that cement dust or sand to get inside the engine. Normally we do this with the engine block empty. In this case, we're just doing a partial fill on an engine that's just going to be a little bit more of an overachiever.